Chapter 7 The Key to the Garden. 2 days after this, when Mary opened her eyes, she sat upright in bed immediately and called to Martha, "Look at the moor! Look at the moor!" The rainstorm had ended, and the gray mists and clouds had been swept away in the night by the wind. The wind itself had ceased, and a brilliant, deep blue sky arched high over the moorland. Never had Mary dreamed of a sky so blue. In India, skies were hot and blazing. This was of a deep, cool blue which almost seemed to sparkle like the waters of some lonely, bottomless lake. Here and there, high in the arched blueness, floated small clouds of snow-white fleece. The far-reaching world of the moor itself looked softly blue instead of gloomy purple-black or awful dreary gray. "Aye," said Martha, with a cheerful grin. "The storm's over for a bit. It does like this at this time of the year. It goes off in a night like it was pretending it had been there and never meant to come again. It's because the springtime's on its way. It's a long way off, but it's a-comin'." "I thought perhaps it always rained or looked dark in England," said Mary. No," said Martha, sitting up on her heels amongst her black lead brushes. "Now the sort." "What does that mean?" asked Mary, seriously. In India, the natives spoke different dialects only a few people understood, so she was not surprised when Martha used words she did not know. Martha laughed as she had done the first morning. "There now," she said. "I've talked broad Yorkshire again like Miss Midlock said I mustn't. Nowt of the sort means nothing of the sort," slowly and carefully. "But it takes so long to say it. Yorkshire's the sunniest place on earth when it's sunny. I told thee that I liked the moor after a bit. Just wait till you see the good-coloured blossoms, and the blossoms, and the broom, and the heather flowers, and all the purple bells, and hundreds of flowers fluttering, and bees a-humming, and skylarks soaring up and singing. You'll want to get out on it at sunrise and live out on it all day like Dixon does." "Could I ever get there?" asked Mary, wistfully, looking through her window at the far-off blue. It was so new and big and wonderful and such a heavenly color. "I don't know," answered Martha. "Tots never used thy legs since I was born, it seems to me. Thou couldn't walk 5 mile. It's 5 mile to our cottage." "I would like to see your cottage." Martha stared at her for a moment curiously before she took up her polishing brush, began to rub the grate again. She was thinking that the small, plain face did not look quite as sour at this moment as it had done the first morning she saw it. It looked just a trifle like Susan Ann when she wanted something very much. "I'll ask my mother about it," she said. "She's one of them that nearly always sees a way to do things. It's my day out today, and I'm a-going home. I'm glad. Mrs. Midlock thinks a lot of mother. Perhaps she could talk to her." "I like your mother," said Mary. "I should think that I did," agreed Martha, polishing away. "I've never seen her," said Mary. "No, that hasn't," replied Martha. She sat up on her heels again and rubbed the end of her nose with the back of her hand as if puzzled for a moment, but she ended quite positively. "Well, that she's sensible and hard-working and good-natured and clean, and no one could help liking her, whether they'd seen her or not. When I'm going home to her on my day out, I just jump for joy when I'm crossing the moor." "I like Dixon," added Mary, "and I've never seen him." "Well," said Martha stoutly, "I've told thee that the birds likes him, and the rabbits, and the wild sheep, and ponies, and foxes themselves. I wonder," staring at her reflectively, "what Dixon would think of thee." "He wouldn't like me," said Mary, in her stiff, cold little way. "No one does." Martha looked reflective again. "How does thou like thyself?" she inquired, really quite as if she were curious to know. Mary hesitated a moment and thought it over. "Not at all, really," she answered. "But I never thought of that before." Martha grinned a little, as if at some homely recollection. "Mother said to me once," she said. "She was at her wash-tub and I was in a bad temper and talking yellow folk, and she turns it around on me and says, 'That young vixen, that's been standing and saying that isn't like one and that isn't like the other one. How does I like thyself?' It made me laugh and it brought me to my senses in a minute." She went away in high spirits as soon as she had given Mary her breakfast. She was going to walk 5 miles across the moor to the cottage, and she was going to help her mother with the washing and do the week's baking and enjoy herself thoroughly. Mary felt lonelier than ever when she knew that she was no longer in the house. She went up into the garden as quickly as possible, and the first thing that she did was run around and around the fountain flower garden 10 times. She counted the times carefully, and when she had finished, she felt better in spirits. The sunshine made the whole place look different. The high, deep blue sky arched over Misselthwaite, as well as over the moor. She kept lifting her face and looking up into it, trying to imagine what it would look like to lie down on one of the little snow-white clouds and float about. She went into the first kitchen garden and found Ben Weatherstaff working there with 2 other gardeners. The change in the weather seemed to have done him good. He spoke to her on his own accord. "Springtime's a-comin'," he said. "Cannot I smelt it?" Mary sniffed and thought she could. "I smell something nice and fresh and damp," she said. "That's the good rich earth," he answered, digging away. "It's in a good humor and making ready to grow things. It's glad when planting time comes. It's dull in the winter when it's got naught to do. In the flower gardens out there, things will be stirring down in the dark. The sun's warming up to 'em. You see bits of green spikes sticking out of the black earth after a bit." "What will they be?" asked Mary. "Crocuses and snowdrops and daffodils. I thought I've never seen them." "No, everything is hot, wet, and green after it rains in India," said Mary. "And I think things grow up in the night." "These won't grow up in the night," said Weatherstaff. "They'll have to wait for them. They'll poke up a bit higher and push out a spike more there, and uncut a leaf in this day and another of that. You watch 'em." "I'm going to," answered Mary. Very soon she heard the soft rustling flights of wings again, and she knew at once that the robin had come again. He was very pert and lively, and hopped about so close to her feet, and put his head on one side and looked at her so slyly that she asked Ben Weatherstaff a question. "Do you think he remembers me?" she said. "Remembers thee?" said Weatherstaff indignantly. "He knows every cabbage stump in the gardens, let alone the people. He's never seen a wrench here before, and he's bent on finding out all about thee. There's no need to try to hide anything from him." "Are things stirring down below in the dark in that garden where he lives?" Mary inquired. "What garden?" grunted Weatherstaff, becoming swirly again. "The one where the old rose trees are." She could not help but asking, because she wanted so much to know. "Are all the flowers dead? Or do some of them come again in the summer? Are there ever any roses?" "Ask him," said Weatherstaff, hunching his shoulders towards the robin. "He's the only one as knows. No one else has seen inside it for 10 years. 10 years was a long time, Mary thought. She had been born 10 years ago. She walked away, slowly thinking. She had begun to like the garden, just as she had begun to like the robin and Dixon and Martha's mother. She was beginning to like Martha, too. That seemed a good many people to like when you're not used to liking. She thought of the robin as one of the people. She went to walk outside the very long, ivory-covered wall, over which she could see the treetops, and the second time she walked up and down, the most interesting and exciting thing happened to her, and it was all through Ben Weatherstaff's robin. She heard a chirp and a twitter, and when she looked at the bare flower bed, at her left side, there he was, hopping about, and pretending to peck things out of the earth to persuade her that he had not followed her. But she knew he had followed her, and the surprise so filled her with delight that she almost trembled a little. "You do remember me," she cried out. "You do! You're prettier than anything else in the world!" She chirped and talked and coaxed as he hopped and flirted with his tail and twittered. It was as if he were talking. His red waistcoat was like satin, and he puffed his tiny breast out, and was so fine and grand and so pretty that it was really as if he were showing her how important and human a person a robin could be. Mistress Mary forgot that she had never been contrary in all of her life when he allowed her to draw closer and closer to him, and bend down and talk and try to make something like robin sounds. Oh, to think he would actually let her come as near to him as that. He knew nothing in the world would make her put out her hand towards him or startle him in the least tiniest way. He knew it because he was a real person, only nicer than any person in the world. She was so happy that she scarcely dared to breathe. The flower bed was not quite bare. It was bare of flowers because the perennial plants had been cut down for their winter rest, but there were tall shrubs and low ones which grew together at the back of the bed, and as the robin hopped about under them, she saw him hop over a small pile of freshly turned up earth. He stopped on it to look for a worm. The earth had been turned up because a dog had been trying to dig up a mole, and he had scratched quite a deep hole. Mary looked at it, not knowing why the hole was there, and as she looked, she saw something almost buried in the newly turned soil. It was something like a ring of a rusty iron or brass, and when the robin flew up into a tree nearby, she put out her hand and picked the ring up. It was more than a ring, however. It was an old key, which looked as if it had been buried a long time. Mistress Mary stood up and looked at it with almost frightened face as it hung from her finger. "Perhaps it's been buried for 10 years, she said in a whisper. "Perhaps it's the key to the garden."